everything that you and your lake hosts have done that have really made this program grow to what it is today. And I'm happy to step into and try and help lead. Then we'll go into the importance of the Lake Host program and how lake hosts protect your lakes. What I think is a really good tool for coordinators is our in-season guide. And so month by month, what you should be keeping an eye out for, what's kind of due for New Hampshire lakes. So we'll quickly review that. How to recruit your team, and I'd love to pick your brain during this part for successful ways that you've found to kind of bring new people in, although we do have a lot of great returners as well. And then scheduling and pay, we'll go through approving a timesheet and our Lake Host Field app. So if that sounds good, we'll keep moving forward. So all of the years that our Lake Host program has been running, these are our numbers and they're fantastic. I mean, almost 1,700 invasive species saves. And if you look over here on the far right-hand side, you'll see all of the species that have been detected by lake hosts and prevented from going into our water bodies. And really, I mean, they're high threat species. And if they do enter a water body, they could completely change the ecology of the lake and impact our, enjoyment of the lake as well. And so we've had over, 1.5 million statewide inspections, and we have received funding for $16.4 million to run the Lake Coast program in its lifetime. So we intend to keep it going and, yeah, keep our numbers going up. So we are the voice for all of New Hampshire's 1,000 lakes. This is part of kind of our motto, and our mission statement is to restore and preserve the health of all of New Hampshire's lakes. And so as an organization, we do that in a few different ways, but as a group here today, our main way is through the Lake Coast program and through those inspections that are occurring. And I would love to be out on the lake right now. Maybe not in a tube, maybe like in a sweater on a boat, but but this just goes to show how much that we can enjoy our lakes and what we're really working towards. Because it's not just environmental impacts of invasive species, but it's also, as I mentioned, our enjoyment, the tourism industry, as well as the local economy. I wish I knew what shit that was. Yeah, she would. Okay, so even though we have all of these beautiful lakes, our lakes are still threatened by invasive species. So as you're all aware, I mean, we really have some veterans in this room of the Lake Coast program. Anything that comes into contact with the water poses a risk of bringing a species to the next water body. So even a, small little pool of standing water in your boat or the boater's boat, could pose a risk of bringing zebra mussel larvae or Chinese mystery mussel or mystery snail larvae to the next water body and start a whole new infestation, which is where lake hosts come in. So, invasive species cause a lot of problems for both people and the environment. When I think of zebra mussels, which aren't as big of a problem yet in New Hampshire, I think of walking on the beach, cutting up your feet, or mystery snails, they're washing up on shore and they smell awful. So preventing that is kind of the most cost-effective way to manage invasive species. Yeah. Um, when the sun is not by the labels, by okay. Yeah. Yeah, and if I guess if you could take a note or okay. Mm-hmm.
We have a thing called program divers that, yeah, go into the water. And they put in a wizard, boat. Okay. It's no boat.
Yeah, and I think Bria's going to take a quick note of that, and then we can.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, overall, we know that invasive species just don't have any good side effects in our water bodies. They can grow faster and more quickly than our native species in many cases. So not only do aquatic invasive species pose environmental risks and risks to our safety, but they can also reduce shoreline property values, which when lake hosts are talking to boaters or property owners on our water body, that can be kind of a good way to have them frame their message to make it more personal to who they're talking with. And maybe they'd be a little bit more receptive to the clean, drain, dry messaging. Does anyone know what species is on this plant? They're a type of mussel. I heard zebra. So these are zebra mussel. You can kind of, it's a blurry photo, so I don't blame you. But you can kind of see the zigzaggy pattern.
I thought there was males, but I'm looking.
Okay, so I think a lot of you are probably familiar with this map, right? Yeah. So I think of it as chicken pox. The less dots that you have, the better it is. And thanks to you, we haven't had any new infestations come up since 2023, actually. This map wasn't updated in 2024 either, which is fantastic. On the flip side of that, the infestations that are shown on this map are also kind of in part detected due to lake coasts being at boat ramps. So they can contribute in both ways to populating this map. And I will mention this doesn't include Chinese mystery snail infestations. So we might have a little bit more chicken pox if that was on here. Okay, so there are some laws that revolve around aquatic invasive species. Some of them relate to messaging that lake hosts share with the public. Does anyone know maybe one of the laws for aquatic invasive species? Really?
Cannot travel with boat with vegetation hanging over, or you can be stopped in front.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I feel like I want to throw you guys a Reese's peanut butter cup.
We could take one from their cup.
Yeah. You've earned some candy. Yeah, so you want to clean off all mud, plants, animals, and debris from boats, trailers, recreational gear, anything that's coming into contact with the water. And same goes with draining boats. So draining bilges, live wells, any coolers that were filled with lake water and maybe some fish, and any other storage compartments that got water in them. And you want to drain your boat with your drain plug as you're leaving the launch so it doesn't pose risk of re-entry into the water. And so you don't drain it when you get to your next launch and you're just dumping that water into the next lake anyways. And boaters can use available tools at some lake locations. You know, my mind goes to our CD3 machine, which is a waterless boat cleaning device.
It's a waterless watercraft cleaning station.
Okay. Yeah. And that has some good tools on it, like pressurized air and like a brush. Yeah. I haven't actually seen it yet in person, but I'm excited. But of course, not everyone knows about these invasive species laws for New Hampshire. even I didn't before I started in this position. And I like to think of myself as familiar in the field. And so for lake hosts, bringing up these laws to boaters can make them feel like there's a little bit more accountability to actually clean, drain, and dry their boats when going to new lakes. But it is worth mentioning that lake hosts conduct 100% voluntary inspections. These are not required by any means. And if a boater says, I'm going to drain my drain plug into this water body, they law-wise aren't able to do that, but lake hosts are not able to stop them. Okay, this is a great photo to show, kind of how physical the inspection process can be. So kind of getting down on all fours, looking at the underside of the boats, looking at particularly any fabric trailers. You can have a lot of larvae that can stash in there. I recommend for lake hosts to run their hand along the side of the boat as they're conducting an inspection to feel for any bumps from snail or mussel larvae. And then if your launch is just infested with aquatic plants, then it will be a tough time for lake hosts just to be removing all of the plant material from the trailer, as I'm sure that you all know. So they should encourage the boater to assist them in the inspection process. We want the boater to be aware that a lake host is moving around their trailer for safety reasons. And yeah, they have a little bit more accountability conducting the inspection, even when a lake host isn't present, if they join them for this initial time at the launch. Yeah.
Just looking at the trailer.
So the comment was that the carpeting really cling or allows the water chestnut nutlets to cling to it easily. We've had a lot of comments about us needing to repeat the comments that you guys have for the people online.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there are two parts to the Lake Coast program. So one is the prevention action. So Lake Coast's actually doing the inspection. And then the other is the education side. So bringing that clean, drain, dry messaging to boaters. And yeah, this is really the part where we've had almost 1,700 invasive species saves. Okay, so how do lake hosts protect your lakes? They provide the free voluntary inspections to boaters. When they're submitting, it depends a little bit if you're using the photo submission form through the survey, or if you're emailing us photos of invasive species that lake hosts have detected. But they submit those photos, they detect the invasive species, they collect other boater data as well. None of that data is personal to the boater. So they still have kind of total privacy as far as our data goes. We do ask lake hosts to record the state of registration, but no registration number. And this really informs us on the flip side, behind the scenes, how many boaters are coming from out of state that may not be aware of, our laws, regulations, and who might not be familiar with our program. And help us push out some of the, materials that we have over there. Please grab some of those pamphlets on your way out. And something that I don't know if it's been mentioned before, lake hosts are able in between inspections or when it's slow to move around at their boat ramp and look in the water off of the dock, off of the shoreline, and find any potential infestations in those areas. Since boats are first launching at the launch, that's where they usually drop off the initial introduction of the species. And so that's where it will really grow first. It's kind of a good indicator location. And then I think I'm going to dream about this statement, clean, drain, dry. So cleaning off all plants, animals, and debris, draining all water, and allowing to dry for at least 5 days in the sun. I love to picture all of the little spiny water fleas just shriveling up, not being able to make it to the next site. Yeah, and Lake Coast should really be pushing this messaging. This is kind of the meat and potatoes of the pamphlets that we're handing out and the message that we're trying to put out there.
Does the pamphlet reflect the greater emphasis on the 5 days?
The pamphlet does, I believe, mention the 5 days in the sun. Yeah. And speaking of spiny water flea, we are still, same as last year, handing out the spiny water flea pamphlets. So please take as many as you want to, decrease the spread of spiny water flea. We're going to clean, drain, and then also soaking your gear in hot water. And there are, kind of specifications to doing these actions that I would encourage you, if you yourself are boating, to become aware of and practice as well. But they are tough, and they're also tough to detect. For lake hosts who are conducting inspections to really survey for spiny water flea, I'd recommend that they're looking at the ropes of boats that have been dragging in the water the entire time the boater's been out and see if anything has kind of glomped on. Okay, so I think that we're about to get to a questions portion in a few slides here. So we'll move forward with getting your group involved in the Lake Coast program. There are volunteer-only programs, and then there are also the paid programs. The majority of our Lake Coast programs are paid, and there's a difference in leadership between the two. So volunteer-only, as I'm sure you know, has the program leader and the coordinator, while the paid Lake Coast groups have those two as well as a treasurer. The coordinator is our main point of contact, so all of you. So I know I've talked with a lot of you already, and thank you again for introducing yourselves virtually. But yeah, I'll be reaching out to you during the season, getting information as needed, and vice versa. So I have another question for you. And I'm curious what you all think are the main responsibilities of the volunteer coordinator role. So what do you think are kind of the top ones?
Yep. So we've had hiring and scheduling. I'm just repeating out loud for the people online, that's all.
Volunteers.
Yep, for the volunteer coordinator.
Yep. Yep. Payroll. Yep, that's a big one. Okay.
We haven't had the answers online. Oh,
we got one.
Applying for grants. So the payroll award, applying for the payroll award. Yep.
Okay, so I think all of these were mentioned for the most part. Also during the season, visiting your lake steward or lake hosts, fairly frequently, dedicating roughly 5 hours per week to the volunteer role, and ensuring that voter data is correct and submitted. And so the process of that is a little bit dependent on whether or not you're collecting data through paper sheets or through the survey, and the time commitment that can take. Oh, and maybe most importantly, making sure that your local group operates within the terms of participation. And those are right in the Lake Coast Training Manual. They're also in the coordinator resources on our webpage if you ever want to refer back to those. Okay. Oh, and I would like to also mention that the time that you spend as a coordinator counts towards your volunteer match. So make sure that you're recording all of that, time that you're putting in during the weeks. Even today. Okay, so there are so many responsibilities that the coordinator oversees. So a local manager can help you. And these individuals typically are for the larger Lake Coast groups to assist with data entry. And they can also communicate with Lake Coasts about scheduling. You would kind of feed them that information and they'd act as a middleman a little bit. They are able to sign off on time cards and, talking with us first. They do have the option of doing other duties. So yeah, just reach out if you have any questions about that. I guess, yeah. So there are quite a few responsibilities that overlap between both the program assistant and the coordinator roles. So that's something that we're really looking to make a little bit clearer going into next year. Because there is quite a bit of overlap, unfortunately, coordinators cannot also be the local manager, but coordinators can also be paid Lake Hosts because there's such a clear definition between the two. The only kind of caveat for that is that someone else from your leadership team will need to sign off on your time card as a paid Lake Host.
Can't be the both.
You're not able to be both. No.
The question was about being the coordinator and the program manager at the same time. And what we've run into is that there is kind of a gray area from labor laws with the different position descriptions. One's volunteer, one's paid. And so sounds like we should have a conversation offline. And for this year and from past years, anyone who has been a coordinator and a program assistant or program manager, both positions, we're still allowing that moving forward. But I think we're actually going to have an internal conversation and possibly see some changes in how we do leadership with the program in New Hampshire Lakes so that we can, if that's something that most of you want as a coordinator and to be paid for being a coordinator, then maybe it's on New Hampshire Lakes to change. Maybe we need to change how we're organizing this program. But as far as this year goes, you can still be, you can still be the coordinator and the program assistant as long as the role that you're doing are two very separate roles. So there are specific tasks that you would do as a program assistant, and then there are specific tasks that you would do as a coordinator. This is so we're not putting the program at risk by crossing labor law lines. Yes.
Are you required to have a coordinator and a...
You are not required to have both. You are required to have a coordinator, a volunteer coordinator to supervise the whole program. Mm-hmm. But the program assistant, the history with the program assistant was, speaking over you. Do you want to speak?
Oh, no.
Okay. The history with the program assistant or the program manager was for the programs that they found that there was a wait with data entry or there's a wait with the program, the amount of effort needed for coordinating a larger program. Yep, the program assistant or program manager is a paid position, yes.
Mm-hmm. Are there any more questions? Yeah.
Any other questions, Barbara?
We'll get back to you.
Okay. So the terms of participation, this is something for your entire leadership team to have accountability on. This does not just fall on your shoulders as the coordinator. And it's a little bit up to you on how you're going to divvy it up to make sure that you're meeting all of these terms of participation. So what are some of the terms of participation that we have? And I didn't make this text small on purpose, but I'm a little bit glad I did because I posed this question. Yep. Yes, meeting match.
Any responses on,
Okay.
Higher.
Yep, that's a good one.
repeat it for the people online?
It was hiring paperwork on time for lake hosts. Oh, there we go. We're a little bit cut off on the bottom, but some of the other core terms of participation for your group as a whole is to appoint a lake host coordinator. Sometimes there are, shifts in who is the coordinator for a group. And in that case, try to be proactive if possible for finding a replacement ahead of time, so that you can kind of provide them that inside knowledge that only you have, being the coordinator. You want to recruit lake hosts, verify the timesheets, and as you mentioned, the at least 100% match for groups participating in the payroll award. Okay, and these terms of participation are updated annually. So even this year, they were a little bit. So you want to check them out each year. One thing that a few groups ran into this season was being in good standing with New Hampshire State. And I believe that's something each group needs to do. Yes, so do you have a little bit more information on that by chance?
So being in good standing with the state just means that you're an official organization and you go through an application process or a reporting process each year online with the state that it gives you a certificate that says in good standing.
Mm-hmm. And for the 100% volunteer match, what are some, I guess, examples of what could be counted towards your volunteer match? Definitely. Yep.
Coming to this training was the answer that we just got.
Volunteer lake.
Yep. Volunteer
Yes.
lake hosting for sure. Let's knock on wood. Yeah, and then also any materials that are ordered through our what's that? Yep, travel to your lake host sites to check on lake hosts, the time spent at your site, maybe retraining, checking on safety. And then any materials that are purchased for your lake hosts through our online store. So sweatshirts, tank tops, things like that.
No.
Oh, yes. So,
A porta potty. Yep.
Yep.
So a porta potty, we actually had that answer online too.
great.
And the volunteer sheet, I kind of asked you this on the phone.
Mhm.
Can each volunteer, as long as they download the sheet, fill it in their own time?
Yeah, there shouldn't be restrictions on how many people can open that sheet for your group.
And then
Can you question?
Oh, yeah.
Well, hold on a second. We need to do due diligence with the people online with the question that was just asked and then fully answer it.
Yes, so the question was asked if all volunteers can enter in their own volunteer time into that Google sheet. And the answer is yes. I for sure recommend saving that as a bookmark so it's easily clickable on your Google. What was your question?
I heard that state fishing game boat ramps. Lake hosts have to be paid positions, is that correct?
I have not heard that. So the question was if at Fish and Game boat ramps, if lake hosts are required to be paid lake hosts.
I think that it depends on the group, as far as I understand.
Okay.
Because they're not being employed, they're not part of a fish and game group. They're part of a local partner group. And
Somebody had said to me that it wasn't so much, New Hampshire Lakes, but fishing game have a requirement because of liability of having people there on the boat ramp. And if they got injured, it's fishing game didn't want to be responsible for it.
that's a really great question. I think that makes sense for us to get back to everyone.
Yeah.
You do have to have permission, and we do get permission from Fish and Game every year.
Boat launch for 2000. And that's gonna be.
Can you repeat that for me? I'm sorry. You've been, so your launch has been, it's a Fish and Game launch.
Game on. Yeah.
So you have both paid and volunteer at Fish and Game boat launch. Okay,
We do too.
so that makes, okay, so that tracks with what I thought. So I would, if you have documentation of that somewhere, like in an email or a text. Well, it's a great question. Yep.
Move logs and things like that. And detrimental to the labels and stuff, where we have facilities. And pretty on.
It's important to recognize in New Hampshire, we have water sites in addition to the fish and game, so to speak, owned and managed launch areas. So in the road public water sites, it's the local jurisdiction that has authority.
Yes, so there are different, so there's even a mapper online that explains who the owners of the launches are, and yes, whoever owns the launch has the jurisdiction over how the site is used. And so any group that has a Lake Coast program, there is approval at that launch that's acquired in the formation of that group. Does that answer everyone's questions? Okay.
Answers mine.
And okay, I have to answer some questions.
Okay. So to wrap up our terms of participation, I'd like to provide you with a few examples of what can count towards your match, because we find, unfortunately, no matter how much we try and, remind people to record all of their volunteer time, things do slip through the cracks. It's a busy time of year, and we want to make sure that you get as much of your match as possible. So make sure that any local funding that is spent on additional hours beyond what is in your payroll award is included. All volunteer time valued at the national rate, which I believe is $33 and I don't know how many cents, but it is in your volunteer match sheets so that you can track that. And that includes any phone, email, or in-person communications, time spent driving to or from the ramp, and time spent on training and retraining your lake hosts later on at the site. Any out-of-pocket expenses for the program, including postage, shares for lake hosts, porta potties, all of that good stuff that keeps the program running. And we went over this a little bit already. So in our terms of participation, groups are required to match dollar for dollar the payroll award. I do think that this is a relatively feasible goal, with 5 hours per week on average being dedicated by coordinators alone. So make sure to record your time. And this can also be done through in-kind donations. And, any of the time spent by lake hosts that is supposed to be paid, that's going towards your volunteer match, uh, you want to make sure that you have the funds to pay those lake hosts. You're responsible for that gap. We recommend recording your volunteer match weekly so you don't lose track. Okay, so before we keep going, does anyone have any questions about volunteer match, the coordinator position, terms of participation, or just kind of anything about the Lake Coast program yet at all?
I'm still confused on the in good standing. I didn't really understand about this.
So we've had some questions online about the good standing status as well. So what I've responded with is with the state, every organization has to be in good standing. Like an administrative position typically is who maintains that for an organization. We've been in contact with every group that is not in good standing with the state, that is a Lake Coast group. So if you haven't heard from us, you're all set.
Yeah.
Oh, no. So it's just, so all the reporting is you go in, you say, yes, I'm still a business in the state of New Hampshire, and you might have to add in some additional information about your business, and there's a fee that you pay.
Thank you. Are you talking about the protective association or a separate thing?
This is any business, any organization in the state of New Hampshire. There's a certificate of good standing that I think it's Secretary of State. So that's through the Secretary of State that you'd contact or submit your report to for that certificate.
And when it gets to that point, we have some directions pre-written out. So it's really easy for us to help guide you through that process too.
And I believe that process is good for 5 years. It has to be done every 5 years.
So depending on the group that the comment was that a certificate of good standing is good for 5 years, and that is dependent on the type of group that you are.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, so I have a question. We have a hybrid paid volunteer system. Okay. I will figure out what the question is and we can move on.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, local program operations. Personally, I found this super helpful coming into this position this season, because it gives you a play-by-play, month by month of the key items that should be completed, that time of year. And so, yeah, this is available in our training manual under coordinator resources on our webpage. I really recommend taking a look. We beefed it up a little bit before we printed our training manuals. So I think that there'll be some things in there that are a little bit more helpful. It is a living document. So anything that you see that's missing in there, please reach out to me. And I'd love to include that. And so right now we are in April. Let's see if it pops up with it. Nope. Okay. So we are in April. So at the beginning of this month, we notified you of your payroll awards. Since then, it has been a whirlwind. We've already started hiring. Lake hosts are starting as early as this upcoming Monday. And yeah, you're also trying to recruit lake hosts. I hope that you're using our hiring flyer that's on our webpage if you're having any trouble. And yeah, I still later on in our training want to pick your brains about how you're recruiting lake hosts. Okay, so diving into recruitment. So for here in person and then also on Zoom, what are some ways that you found really successful to recruit Lake hosts? Facebook? Okay.
Posting at the local town, bulletin board and stuff, down in Phoenix town.
Okay, that's good.
Can you repeat the answer?
Oh, posting on local town bulletin boards. Yeah.
Your lake association.
Yep, your lake association. And do most of you have Facebook pages for your lake associations? Okay, I thought so. I haven't gotten to paw through it yet, but yeah, that could also be a really good place to post.
I think
Mhm.
really interested. I reached out to local schools around, right, to see if teachers these and
Oh, nice. So that's a really good idea. So posting on Indeed and then also reaching out to teachers at local schools to see if they would be interested in lake hosting in their off season. Which when I was running a lake host program in New York, I wish I had thought of that. Would have made life a lot easier. Yeah, and to sit at the lake, read a book and when it's slow, sounds good to me.
So we had some answers online as well. Someone, see, we have Glenn and Holly saying that they sent it out to the local papers.
Mhm.
Barbara Cooper, they local parents that they knew who had teenagers living at home. And then Patricia said websites, posting on the bulletin board at the lake. And then Janet said forms forwarded by New Hampshire Lakes.
Nice. Good. Those are all really good ways and ways that I want to remember to include in our training for next year. Also tabling at a local job fair if the timing lines up. Yeah, and then posting those flyers. I used to post flyers at gas stations. Sometimes they'd allow me to keep them up. Usually I'd have to ask permission. But that can also be a good place to reach a ton of people. Yep, library or bank. And lake hosts do need to be 16 years or older. And so keeping that in mind when you're recruiting people. Okay, so no hire letter equals no ramp time. Lake hosts must be fully onboarded before they are able to start working at their ramp. If they do work at their ramp, that puts us at labor law violation risk. So it's something that we really want to avoid, make everyone aware. And so the lake host will receive an official notice of hire. And so I know that there's a lot of back and forth communication. We like to make that final communication with them very clear that, this is your green light to start lake hosting at your site to avoid any confusion. Okay.
I have a question on that. If they use their training stuff, if they're doing their online training before that time, can they include it on their first time sheet, or do you want them to wait for all their training?
They do have to wait until their first day of hire to take the training. So the question was if lake hosts can take the trainings before their first day of hire and include that in their first timesheet. And so no, they do have to wait. And yeah, usually their first day is that training day. So one question that I got a lot so far is what is the average hourly wage across all of the programs? So the average hourly wage across the program is $15.67 per hour. We as an organization are not able to give you the exact wage amounts for groups neighboring or, throughout the state specifically. But if you want to reach out to groups around you and kind of compare and contrast a little bit, you can certainly, have that conversation. And so to recruit your team, the first step for Lake Hosts is to complete their online inquiry form. And a lot of you have already surpassed this step. Some people are already fully hired. Once they submit that inquiry form, those responses are going to be automatically emailed to your email. And that will help you to fill out a hire request form to New Hampshire Lakes. And yeah, once we get that hire request form, that's really where we start to take over. We know that you want to hire this person and we get them into the payroll system and get their hire letter to them and everything. Volunteers are a little bit easier of a process. They only need to fill out the volunteer information form, and that includes you as coordinators as well to fill out the volunteer information form. And that is under Lake Host Resources on our webpage. Do we have any questions?
Is there a date for the Lake Coast training?
There is. You're beating me to it though, so.
So we do have some questions online. Trisha Barr asks, where do Lake Host find their hire letter? And I replied, but also will share with everyone that it should be in the inbox of the email address that was used for their hire request application that coordinators submitted for them. So if their email address is not right, then they would not have their hire letter. So if they think that they should have received it and they can't find it in their inbox, please have them call us or email us.
Have them check their junk first.
Yes.
That's reminder.
The comment was have them check their junk or spam, because oftentimes our emails do end up there.
The first, for the second, junk or spam.
That's unfortunate.
That is unfortunate. Yeah.
And then another question that we had was, do volunteers need a hire letter? And you kind of answered that already, where they need the volunteer information form needs to be filled out, but they don't receive an official hire letter. They do receive an email that says that they've been quote hired by their local program, and they need to communicate with the coordinator for their schedule.
And during that step, as the coordinator, if you want your volunteers to track their own time, that would be a good time at the beginning of the season to send them that volunteer match sheet link. Are there any other questions so far? Yeah.
Do most Lake Coast with either brand within an organization receive pay rate, or some giving some striations?
Most, oh, yes. So the question was if most lake hosts are paid at the same rate at a single boat ramp, right?
Yep.
Okay, so one group responded that they pay based on seniority. Yep, and how long they've been there, the longer they've been there, the more they get. Not every group works that way. That's great. Usually, from what I've seen in my limited view so far, lake hosts are paid the same rate typically in programs. If you have an assistant manager, which is not a required position, typically they get paid a little bit more. And that person can be a lake host and a program assistant at different rates. So they need to track their time really well.
We pay the same amount, but in the area of aid, and because you have to compete with it.
Mm-hmm. So to repeat, the comments was that you pay them all the same, but you also make it competitive with the other businesses in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Have there been any changes to the software systems for new hire people this year compared to last year, or should that be?
Yes.
So
Oh, no, you
go ahead.
You can go.
Okay, all right. So the question was, have there been any changes to the software from this year to last, or from last year to this year? And no, we're still using iSolved or Savant. So you'll see emails coming through. You'll be copied on some emails. Paid Lakos will see emails coming through Savant, like rehires. They won't have the same process that they had last year. It'll be simpler because there's less information for them to fill out. Yes. But new hires will have to fill out all of the information. We'll be following up with some people for updated I-9s. So last year we made the move from local coordinators approving I-9s to just New Hampshire Lakes approving I-9s. We're continuing that process this year. So if there's anyone that has an older I-9 that we didn't catch last year, we're going to catch them this year. So watch out.
All right. Speaking of the I-9, it is entirely completed online now. And returning lake hosts, as Bria mentioned, may not need to complete this, which makes it so much easier for returning lake hosts. But that is determined on a case-by-case basis. So just because they're a rehire doesn't always mean that they won't need to refill out an I-9. Mailed or emailed I-9s will not be accepted, but if you find that your lake host is having a ton of trouble filling this out online, then they can schedule to come to our office and do that. Or, first we'd probably try and work with them remotely a little bit as well.
So I might have missed it. So do the coordinators have to witness the I-9 anymore?
It's completely, so the question was if coordinators need to witness lake hosts completing the I-9. So the I-9 is completely off of your shoulders. It's not something that you really need to worry about anymore in having completed, because New Hampshire Lakes has absorbed that responsibility. Oh, I'm going to admit to it. Mm-hmm. All right. Any questions about the I-9 process? Yeah.
So I want to make sure the employee would have to create an image.
You and me. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the question was about the I-9 process and uploading identifying documents. So there's a couple different ways to do it. When say they're a brand new hire and they're going through they've received the email from iSolve Savant. They've gone in, they've done section 1 of their I-9. They have the option to upload a photo to iSolve. That is the easiest way to go about it on both sides, their side and our side. What we end up doing is we have another software that has some high security called E-Verify, and it allows us to electronically verify I-9s so that no one has to be physically in person to do the verification process. There are other options. So if someone doesn't want to submit it in iSolved, you can email it to us. Like you can email us a picture. We immediately delete any imagery that we receive after we've confirmed and I verified the I-9. You can also Zoom with us. We'll set up a Zoom and you can show us say it's a passport. Show us your passport. We'll write down the information in so it's section 2 of the I-9. We'll fill out section 2 as we're looking at the document in Zoom, and that way there's no shared imagery on any platform.
The issue that we had was with any methods that we, so that's what I was trying to verify. If none of that works, if his Zooming doesn't work, he could conceivably come in the conference.
Oh, absolutely. So the continuation of the question was, if none of those options work, can they still come in person? And absolutely, they can come in person. Yep, if technology fails for whatever reason, we can definitely do an in-person verification.
So rehires from last year do not have to fill out a new I-9, is that correct?
Yeah, likely not. Likely rehires won't need to fill out an I-9. If we have so New Hampshire Lakes needs to be the organization that has completed the I-9. So if we have ones on record that were completed by coordinators previously, we are going to ask lake hosts to refill those out. And then from moving on from there, they should be good to go.
Another reason why an I-9 would expire, would be like if they're here on a green card or a work visa and that expires. Even if so say if we verified their I-9 last year with their passport, but it expired over, after we verified their I-9 is still good. We can still use that I-9. So that's it. This is a much easier process than what we've been doing in the past.
Yes. Smooths things out for sure. I'm glad that I missed the chaos of I-9 seasons. Okay, and then as another quick reminder, lake hosts cannot work at their site until all onboarding paperwork has been done and they receive that set to go email that they can start working at their ramp. Here's the questions slide. All right. Does anyone have any other questions about our hiring process? Yeah.
So what is the time frame between when I submit an email saying I want to hire somebody and then I gather they get an email and I get a copy of it saying that they've applied and they've already sent it in. But what's the time frame for them to get the letter? What's the,
like the hire letter? No, I think this is a good question. So the question was, what is the turnaround time for a hire letter after you've submitted them for hire?
Yeah.
I think it's the hire letter, right? Not the final, like, hey, you've been hired.
Well,
so our process right now is that once we receive an email, or a submission that, hey, this coordinator wants this person to be hired in as a lake host. We see that in our system, we get a notification, and we then will send out a hire letter to them in an email. And that process, it depends on, it's easier on our side to do them in bulk, but there are times when, so we might wait a day to be able to send out more hire letters at one time than if we were to manually do every hire letter, which, I mean, that's a lot. There's like, I think 300. we cap out at around 300 hired lake hosts every year. So not having to do manual hire letters is the way that we would prefer. That being said, we try to hire everyone within 24 to 48 hours, fully hire everyone within 24 to 48 hours, especially if they're going to work. So like we have people that have applied the last couple of days, right? That want to work on Monday, starting on 4/28 Monday. We're trying to push them through so that they can work on Monday. And as long as all the paperwork's in order, the I-9's in order, the back and forth is what takes the most time when we're looking for more information from someone or something's incomplete. But to answer your first question,
a couple of days
is within, I would say within 24 to 48 hours is when they should receive their hire letter.
you copy the coordinator.
So when a person's been fully hired, yes, the coordinator is copied. So you're talking about two separate emails that are being sent. So there's a hire letter email that is sent directly to the person that is to be hired for them to sign and send back to us. there is all the middle in between of them getting hired, say if they have an I-9 to recomplete, or if they have, yeah,
actually sign.
if their hire letter wasn't actually signed, or if there's something wrong with their hire letter, maybe they're
not gonna see any of that.
You don't need to know. You wouldn't see any of that.
I don't think you want to see that.
And then there is a final email that is sent out that you are copied on that says this lake host has been hired and is ready to go. Does that answer all of your questions?
Yes, definitely.
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
Any questions online?
So yes, we have some questions online. Is there still a separate permission form for lake hosts under 18 years old? And the answer is yes. Will you be going over that more here?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, so for lake hosts who are under 18 years old, they will be sent with their hire letter in that same email, also a youth permissions form that needs to be filled out and returned to us at the same time as their hire letter. So it's kind of a packet together.
And then, so Linda asked, do they need a hire letter before they do the lake host training? And if they're a paid lake host, they need to have their hire letter and all of their hire paperwork in check before doing the lake host training, because that is a paid training for them. And then that is the final question.
Okay. So we're going to scoot forward like our mute swan here and go into lake host program materials. So you all are here, so you know what the front of our building looks like, but some people may have never been here before. So your lake host uniforms are provided. If you didn't have time before our training today, you're more than welcome to, take whatever materials you need. We are going to restock the shirts before people scoot out of here in case you couldn't grab all the ones that you need. We also have a self-service pickup station. So through these front doors, there's a little table that has all of this there. So if you're coming in today and you don't have your lake host picked out, you may not know what shirt size you need. So unfortunately, you may need to make another trip back here. And then there is a pickup form so that we know when you're visiting, so I can be in office and say hi. And that is between 10 and 4 p.m. on weekdays. The pickup form is in a little bit of a sneaky spot. So you can give us a call to let us know, but if you do want to fill it out virtually, it's on the materials section of the Lake Host resources. So, in addition to our, free materials, we also have sweatshirts, tank tops, long sleeve shirts, that you can purchase from the online store, which I'm sure that you all are very familiar with. And that those count towards your volunteer match. Another thing that you will grab are incident and injury reporting cards. So you should grab at least one for each lake host and yourself. You want to report any incident or injury involving a lake host within 24 hours to New Hampshire Lakes to make us aware. And this includes any, severe issues with the public as well, not just, knock on wood, breaking their leg at the ramp. Oh, and the line is where you put your name, and below are our coordinators' names. So it's a little bit tricky. Yeah.
Should take photographs. So we're reporting them, to the conference or whatever, you have some relevant information that you need.
Yes, so the question was if the back of the incident and injury reporting card has instructions to, take photographs of the issue at hand. I don't believe that it does. So yeah, that's a good suggestion on steps that you should take. Yeah.
We had some incidents where the motor vehicle was called, and so it wasn't in for you, but the responding officer advised caution for documenting a situation because their phones can be then as evidence, so they can their phone can be subpoenaed basically. So we have an iPad that is that's with Luke's iPad. It's not really their first one. So we always instruct them to use that. So it's not their own phones. I have a lot of younger like college age kids, and they were pretty relieved to get that bit of information. They were, the look on their eyes, they were there and the police officer said it. Woo, like their phone could be taken. So just something we learned.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good point. So, all right, you're testing my memory. Yeah, so being careful of what you're recording as evidence of a situation happening at your ramp, because it could be, subpoenaed, collected for evidence by local authorities. Okay. And then materials that you're all super familiar with, we have our stickers, our brochures, and our spiny water flea cards. Please take as many as you want, and really encourage lake hosts to push these out to boaters. I know that at least in upstate New York for the program I was overseeing, these were a little bit difficult to push out to boaters. So I asked lake hosts just to hand them to them and not take them back essentially. And we did get more numbers out of them. Okay, so our lake host scheduling and pay, and we are starting to near the end of our training. So we just have this section and then one more thing to go. So for our scheduling and pay, we'll kind of dive in to look to see what the season will look like for this year. So of course our Lake Host program training, and this is where those dates are going to be posted. So if you want to take a photo in a minute of the dates, all of the Lake Host trainings, as well as this training, are going to be recorded for future viewing, and for any lake hosts who are coming in before or after the live training dates that are provided. And so I'm going to record those, update them on our webpage so it's all fresh, new information. And these trainings are mandatory for coordinators as well as lake hosts and program assistants. And volunteers are strongly encouraged to attend or watch the New Hampshire Lakes trainings. So our first one is on May 22nd from 4 to 6 p.m. And I'll leave these up for a minute. And then our second will be on Wednesday, June 18th from 6 to 8 p.m. And in your payroll award notification email, these are also listed in there with the Zoom links. A reminder will be sent out just with that information solo on its own. Okay. And this is a little bit later in the season. Our goal was to capture as many lake hosts with our live trainings as possible. If we did it, for instance, this upcoming Monday, we'd probably only have about 6 people, and that's a sad attendance. So we're going to pause. And time training is time paid. So make sure that they get paid.
You have a way of knowing if the host has No.
So the question was, do we have a way to know if a lake host has attended a training? And presently, no. It's self-accountability, accountability of the coordinators to follow up with their hires to know that they are doing the job that they should be. That doesn't mean that we haven't been thinking about it. And how can we get more people to participate in the trainings, to watch the trainings? And maybe it's a quiz, maybe it's, I don't know, an email back that says, yes, I've watched it.
There volunteer information or I think that was connected to their online training. You go online if you're going to be a volunteer and upload what they posted. Something allows some information. Is that happening this year?
Yes, so the question was volunteers filling out information online. And so volunteers do need to fill out that information sheet, which is right under the link for Become a Paid Lake Host. There's also Become a Volunteer Lake Host. I guess it would be a good suggestion, if I'm tracking your thought process, to include the links to our online pre-recorded videos for volunteers to join and watch.
So we have a question online that says, how much time should we give lake hosts for the training? And that would be however long it takes them to watch the video. If you want to walk through a training in person with them to say, okay, this is how you do an inspection, this is how you walk through a boat, this is what you look for, all that time would be counted towards their pay. Oh, we have a question over here.
Was that May 22nd? That's Memorial Day week.
It's right before. Yes.
Right. So, but there is online training possibility for before that.
Okay. So the question was about the training dates and the availability of the training dates, because there are lake hosts that are starting now, or not now, Monday. It feels like now. And there are trainings available online that are recorded for them to watch. And if they have any questions, they're welcome to reach out and ask us questions, ask you questions. If they ask really great questions that you can't answer, send them our way and we'll try to answer them too.
So are those available now?
Yes, there are trainings available now on the website.
Are those ones that have been available to pass the same?
Yes, those are the same trainings that have been available. They're the trainings from last year, I believe.
So most of the information is still the same for the trainings that are on our webpage. The only core piece of information that lake hosts need to be up to date on are updates to the questions that they're asking boaters. So I'll quickly review in a little bit what those questions are, but it'll help with kind of our data interpretation on the back end.
So we have another question online that, is it useful for coordinators to attend the lake host training, possibly online, or is it the material, all of the material that's covered today? And you can amend, but my recommendation would be, if you feel that, like, if you want to understand kind of an insider perspective of what they're seeing and be able to help them a little bit more, like if you know that you have some lake hosts that have trouble with technology and you want to understand a little bit more about it so that you can help them with it, yeah, I would say attending that lake host training would inform you more to help your staff. It is not required.
And if there's one section of the training that you feel like you'd like to understand from their perspective a little bit more, it is broken up on the webpage. So for example, our field app, that's one video link on its own. So that could be helpful as well. So planning your staffing schedule, I want to ask, what are some methods of scheduling that have worked for you to schedule your lake hosts? Yeah.
So with volunteers, especially 6 hours seems to be a long shift for the guys. So 2 guys will be together and split it up then.
Yep. So Yes, so splitting up longer shifts between lake hosts to kind of break things up. Okay. Mhm.
4 hours. Pretty well encouraged.
Yep.
So shift sharing.
Yeah, shift sharing.
Okay. We have someone online that said a Google shared schedule or a Google spreadsheet.
Spreadsheet, but we really rely on volunteers, so we.
That's great.
Shifts will get 4 hours because a lot to ask people. And we have a couple of really old people that do too.
So you said, just to repeating it for the people online. So you said that you use a Google spreadsheet, but you also do 4-hour shifts and because you're mostly volunteer.
Yeah. A couple of people that are elderly, and then it's people 4 hours, 2 hours.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
We use Sign Up Genius. It's free and it sends out reminders to everybody.
Sign Up Genius.
Yeah, I've never heard of Sign Up Genius. So yeah.
No, they sign up, they register with them, and just give them their email and stuff. And then when they sign up on Thursday, they send out reminder emails automatically that you're scheduled to volunteer Saturday from 10 to 12.
Cool. Ah, something to check out. Yeah.
I'm just curious from other lakes, what hours you staff?
So the question for our online folks was, what are the hours that other groups are staffing at their boat ramps? 7 to 7?
7.
7. Yeah.
Let's forget about.
Where are you? Are you?
So
Yeah, it's the single, it's the most busy single room.
We have volunteers Monday through Friday with 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Mhm.
So there are 30 spots, and right now we have 27 volunteers already signed in. And we had a lot of repeat from last year, probably.
Are the weekends longer than? What are Saturday and Sunday hours?
7 to 6. Those are the paid.
The paid positions on the weekends.
yeah, so we have a lot of 7 a.m. start times too popping in online. That seems to be a consensus across the board. Some 9 to 5s, some Fridays 4 to 7, Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings. A lot of weekends.
So we are going to keep things moving since we are an hour and a half into our training. So we'll pick up the speed a little bit here. So for scheduling considerations, for your lake hosts, especially those that are paid or those volunteers who just love being at the lake, try to provide kind of regular, predictable schedules for them. I think that's really appreciated. Know the labor law restrictions. So for example, a paid lake host cannot also be a volunteer lake host. And then lake hosts must be 16 years or older. So their first day of work could be on their 16th birthday. Yeah.
So someone online, just referencing the last question that was listed or asked, I thought this was a really cool idea. They have a list of volunteers that act as substitutes to call if someone can't make their shift.
That's a good idea. Okay, and then when lake hosts are submitting their hire inquiry forms, they can include multiple locations that they might want to work at. And it is perfectly fine for them to work at more than one ramp for more than one group, as long as they don't exceed over 40 hours total for their time worked during a week. So you may need to work a little bit with that lake host more on their schedule. Yeah. Yes, so the question was, what if the rates of pay are different for the lake host working at the two groups? They will submit their time separately for those two groups. Mhm.
Yeah, that's absolutely
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, every group is gonna have a different pay that they're comfortable with for their lake hosts. And one group could pay a lake host $15 an hour, and another group maybe can't afford that and they're paying 13.
Okay. So our inclement weather policy and payroll is the same as last season. Lake host should not be at the ramp when it's hazardous conditions. If it's hailing, which I really hope it doesn't do during the summertime, lake host shouldn't be there. Super high winds. I live in Epsom and it gets so windy that my gutters shake and like make a whole vibrating sound on my house. The winds in New Hampshire are insane. And then if there's any thunder and lightning, you don't want to be by the water. And you want to try and keep an eye out on the weather, keeping your lake hosts in mind the night before, so that you can give them a heads up that their shift will be canceled. We do have that 2-hour rule, which I think most of you are familiar with. If a lake host shows up to work, they're there for 30 minutes. They need to, and then they leave because of the weather. They need to be paid for at least 2 hours of work.
We had a question on, or more of a clarification online. So back to the previous question about a lake host working at 2 different ramps, 2 different pays. When they enter their time, they'll need to make sure that they're writing down the right time that they worked for the ramp that they worked at, so that the group is paying them for the time that they worked at their ramp.
They have to be separate sheets anyway.
Yes, yeah, they're separate time sheets, exactly.
Oh, and we do recommend offering the opportunity to make up those hours if you're able to for the lake hosts, so they can still get their, same pay that they would expect. Okay, so getting your lake hosts paid. So we operate on a bi-weekly payroll schedule. In the Lake Host Training Manual, more in the back towards the coordinator resources, all of the payroll Monday days are written out, all of the dates. I would suggest putting that into your calendar, whether it be electronic, paper, so that you remember to pay your lake hosts. You will get an email as well. And, I know that a lot of emails are sent out during the season, and thank you for bearing with us because we have that in mind, how much we're communicating with you, how full your inbox is getting. We need to make sure that lake hosts, though, are getting paid on time. And with so many groups that we're working with, we can't really differentiate week to week who we need to reach out to. But we're always open to suggestions if you have any. So for that email that you will receive, it will look like this. And this is same as last year, same procedure. So it will have, hi, Hannah. You can review your time entries by clicking the link below. And if you have already approved Lake Host timesheets, then you can just disregard this email. But when you click the link, it will take you to this view. And here you have well, first you want to find your site. So right now it's just the town of Pittsburgh, but it could be, any site that's there. And you have 2 options of where you're going to click. So either the orange or the green. The orange, it's tough to read on the screen, but it says open site view of time entries versus approve all current timesheets. So you're going to press the orange if you want to look lake host by lake host and get more of an in-depth idea of what they have entered for their time card. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. So if you click on the orange, reviewing timesheets person by person, it will take you to this view. And there is first the name all the way in the left-hand column of your lake host, and then their status. So there are some different statuses that can pop up there. First is approved, that will be green. And of course, that indicates that the time has been approved for your lake host. Next is rejected, which will be red, indicating that you have rejected that lake host's time card for the week. It will be sent back to them. When you reject a lake host's time card, you want to include a little note telling them why, so they know what to review. Once they have made that review, it'll come up in that burnt orange color for entry updated. And then you can go in, review their time on the blue button to the right of that, and make sure that it all looks buttoned up, and then approve them. The last one is pending review under that status column, meaning that no action has been taken yet for approving that lake host's time for the payroll period. Any questions so far on approving time cards? Okay. So once you, I should back up. So once you click review time, which is, sorry for the jumping back and forth, which is the third column in, it's that bright blue color. It will take you to this page. It will give you a brief overview of how many hours that lake host is claiming that they worked during the payroll period, the date, name of your group, the lake host, as well as the position, which is really important to keep an eye on if that person has 2 positions for your group. And then you can either approve or reject and submit. Okay, and then the much easier portion of this, if you click the second option, which is approve all current time entries, then it's going to take you here and you just press submit. I would say for the first 2 or 3 weeks that you are working with your paid lake hosts, you really want to have an understanding of what they're punching in so they're not accidentally putting, 16 hours in one day. I have a big paycheck coming my way. And all of the time that you're spending on this, because this is time consuming as a coordinator, you want to track in your volunteer tracking sheet. So not only are you doing their time card, you're kind of doing yours at the same time. We covered that.
I have a question about the volunteer.
The volunteer timesheet?
So typically at Far Lake, a volunteer host fills out their own. Are you talking at the volunteer match sheet?
This is the volunteer match sheet, yeah.
So basically they do time periods, and that's what we usually put at the end of the 2 weeks, the volunteer hours for each volunteer. My question is, does it have to be that way? Because essentially we're wasting a lot of paper, right? If it's each host uses 1 sheet of paper for 2 weeks, 2 shifts possibly. Am I being clear? I'm Jane, I'm lake host, let's say 2 to 4 on Tuesdays. And so I fill it out at the beginning of the pay period or the time period. And I fill it out the first Tuesday, the second Tuesday, but I add up my hours and sign it and submit it. I just wondered if there was another way to go around to do that.
I do mine on my sheets both.
So the question is about the volunteer timesheet, and for the volunteer time, it's those lines are never ending. You can add as many lines as you want, and it's not a form to submit for every pay period because it's volunteer time. We're not tracking that volunteer time by pay period because there's no pay involved. So we have a lot of folks actually that they're not entering any volunteer time the entire summer and wait all the way until the end of October to enter in volunteer time. We don't recommend that because there's a lot of time I think that gets not accounted for, especially from a volunteer perspective. So when Hannah said, when you're doing volunteer hours, go ahead and enter it in and throw it in. And you can do it however you feel. It could be by day. You could say, oh, this week I know I did 30 hours because I helped onboard a bunch of Lake hosts. You can put that in this one entry and it's for your name.
Okay, that's very helpful, thank you.
Okay.
So I was one of those people that waited till October and tons of volunteer hours. What I plan to do this year, if this is okay, is have each volunteer download this and then fill in their own hours.
So the question and clarification was that can you share this form with all of the volunteers? Answer being yes. I wouldn't have them download it because it's a shared file.
Yeah.
You have access to it. It is yours. Anyone that accesses that link is accessing the same document. So if they were to, yeah. So yes, if they bookmark it, that's fine. And as long as you're tracking what their volunteer time is, like, so that you know what's going on in there, that's great.
All right, I think that we have one more question.
Yeah, that. You don't volunteer. But we over the course of last year, I think we had 3 or 4 different times where someone entered the wrong hours. It's very easy to do because they're just pull downs, am I correct? So we pull it down, we select the wrong batch of time. I think it was arduous, but I need to go and check every time, since I'm.
Yeah, so the comment was that it can be easy on how lake hosts are submitting their time to select the wrong hours. Yep, and their mistakes. But that it's good practice to go through each time submission from lake hosts and do that quality check each payroll period.
So, same situation, is there a way you can work by lake host when you're approving time? Because I have 4-hour increments by each lake host. I'm going back and forth my schedule. If I could sort by person, it'd be easy for me to go, Patty work these 5 days. Mm-hmm.
There is a way to do that in just fill out forms. So you're saying right now it shows up by day?
Yeah, well, it's probably, I guess, 3 hosts, or they don't do it once an hour. This whole, names of different hours to approve.
Okay, it should be showing up. So the comment that's happening right now is that there's lots of time entries to look through in the timesheet or the pay period time card for all of the employees, and it's not organized in like by employee, it's organized in a different way. Yeah. We'll look into that because it should be organized by employee, because that's really confusing.
That may just be on hers. It may just be me. Mine's alphabetical. Like we have 2 different days.
Okay, so maybe there was something. Maybe it's something funny that happened in your link. So what group are you? Okay. Yeah, we'll make note of that.
I know you can filter. Yes. You can filter it by pay period, which simplifies the looking. Still on you.
I definitely recommend. So the comments going around right now are just about playing around with the view that you have. Definitely click around. You're not going to screw it up. And if you feel that you have screwed it up, we can fix it. So definitely play with it. Make it work for you. but I'm writing you down, so we'll make sure that
We have you on the list.
we've got you listed, don't worry.
I just want to call out that for anybody who's new, as funky as this software is for payroll, it is miles ahead of paper. So,
Oh my God.
Yeah, these are small complaints relative to paper issues.
Yes,
Thank
this
you
is
for-
by far better than the paper tracking that we used to have to do. No, it's not new this year. We've had it for a couple of years. I think at least four. Okay, so yeah, it's been a couple of years. I was gonna say, it's been a couple of years that we've had it, but so last year was the first full year for everyone. Yep.
So that's paid late posts need to use the for their time. That's how they.
Yeah, so paid Lake Coast will receive an email. They'll receive an email every pay period to fill out their timesheet. And it will have a link in that email for them to go into this timesheet.
Okay, great.
Okay, we're gonna keep things moving here as we start to wrap up. So very briefly, our field app, our Survey 123, the majority of groups are using this. The benefits are that it can work in areas with no cell reception. All you need to do is save that completed survey into the outbox and then send it when you're hooked up to Wi-Fi or you have cell phone reception. I like to save my cell data, so I wait until I have Wi-Fi. But it really makes it easier, especially if you don't have that program assistant manager position filled, to manage your data. Otherwise, you need someone to interpret the paper sheets onto online, get it into the app. And so this kind of circumvents that process a little bit and makes it easier. And then it's super important to make sure that your inspections are recorded with us. So whether or not you're using the field app, using paper sheets, because inspections determine your payroll award for next season. So every inspection counts.
So is that set up to, like, we've been using paper sheets?
Mm-hmm.
And we did the submission in that form that was like paper sheet.
The Google Sheets.
Yeah, so when we have like groups of kayakers, for instance, we could cut and paste the information. If they all had gone to the same meeting last week, you get a lot of groups like that. With the app, I didn't notice any real way to do multiples, so you have to do them individually.
Yes, no, you can like put your person in there. Because we do paper too, and I do the entry. And just, you'll just have to change like the time maybe, or, you know, if it's a vote, like for me, I just get a something in the service. So it puts the information in, and there's a button that says, fill in survey, and then you just go in and change it, so it's a lot faster, so you don't have to individual section.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and the question or comment for the folks online was when using the Survey 123 Field app, it does not at the moment provide the drop-down option for entering multiple motorized or non-motorized watercraft. And so there's kind of the need to enter that if it's a group of people more than once. And so yeah, suggestions like that, we can easily edit the survey on our back end. And yeah.
I'll give it a try. I was up there walking around and just kind of remember how it gets up there, and I think we're probably going to get you paper just in something.
Mm-hmm.
They found that the larger groups actually have to be put in this is too slow.
Yeah.
Like for our country, it's like 10 volts an hour on average. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's on average. So bigger projects with paper, and they have like a data person.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So the comment was that some larger groups, because the boat ramp's so busy, they'll use a paper sheet to do data entry manually, and then either there'll be someone offline, not during busy hours, or as volunteer time, or maybe it's the program assistant that will do data entry into Survey 123 after the fact.
But we have the same problem, although we're a little late, but you have kayaks coming together. How come we can't change the app if we can just add something?
and I think that that's a really good suggestion. So yeah, suggestions like that for, you know, including an option to include multiple non-motorized watercraft in one survey if they come in a group. Yeah, keep making suggestions and yeah, we'll bring it to the team and try and make those happen.
Although there's a pretty easy workaround because you can save everything you've recorded as your favorite, and then all you have to do is click to apply it. So you just do that 6 times. Well,
that is an option for our tech savvy people. Okay. Yep. One more.
One of them, or to the gap. You said entering survey 123. Asking the entry into the Google Docs spreadsheet as well. Is that not going to be a possibility this year?
So do you wanna?
Yeah, it will definitely be an option this year. We're not getting rid of it. We would love to move away from it. Because of it, right now we have data in 2 different spots. And that Google sheet, we don't have, let's see if I have, we have to combine it with the data that's in Survey 123. So as per data practices, it's not best practice to have your data in 2 separate spots. It also makes it really challenging if we update questions in the Survey 123 app or the field app, we have to update the questions in the Google sheet, and that can screw some people up because we have all the old questions still hanging around. We're not getting rid of the Google sheet this year. We probably won't get rid of it next year, but keep it on the back of your mind that we're trying to get rid of it. We're going to be talking to the groups, I think, that are using the Google sheet to see what we can do with you to move you over to the field app, or what we can do with you to help make the field app feel a little bit more comfortable.
Well, the problem with the field app is you're asking people who are almost minimum wage to grow their phone.
Yep.
And stand and risk dropping it. That's the main reason why we want to continue using paper.
Yep. So
you're going to supply
so the concern is about using personal phones at the ramp. And that's why we do have the option to have paper sheets at the ramp so that there's someone else, either volunteer or paid, entering in the data after the fact.
Yeah. Yeah. It's significant. You can do that. There's a way to do that. I was like you, I was the old fashioned way. And then I know that they're going to this. You can still, like, for instance, this is how I do it. I have 4 ramps, so I have to have like different ramp, and so I do like Lee's Mills. I'll say Lee's Mills. And in each ramp I can have 1 to 2 people. So I put their name in it and I cut and I paste. And then when I go in, instead of putting in like all the entries 1 by 1, it takes forever. I just go in and like I put like 1 to 2, or whatever the hours, 2 to 4. And I go through and I count, okay, there's 10, 2 to 4. And then I individually go through. Most of my people are like Winnipesaukee because it's big lake, they stay on it. But say it's a different lake, then I'll just go into there and I'll change the lake. But I paste it first, and then I go and just, instead of changing all 20 entries, I'll change 3. And it's faster than you think. And once you get used to it, you'll love it. Because then I know Survey 123. Yeah. Jack doesn't, we have a variety of There comes the line. You do too. Everyone does. Right, we're on the board. So we get, they're right up the River Valley and then they come to Rolling Place. So they're from all over. I can't do the survey. I'll play with it. My people were do it too. I mean, we do paper too, but I'm saying as a data, it's not as because I kind of audit. It's not as difficult as we think.
Yeah, and we definitely hear the concerns of that. And that's why we really want to make that very, very slow transition so that we can iron out any bugs that we're having to make it easier for people when eventually in the far future we do move away from the Google Sheet. In the meantime, you know, even if you are using paper sheets, I would still encourage you just to explore our survey data field app, just so you kind of know what other programs are using, what lake hosts are looking at some of the sites. So if you are interested in checking it out just for your own kind of knowledge, then you can scan the QR code. It will ask you to download the free app. And you will always want to press continue without signing in, which is really difficult to see. It's underneath manage ArcGIS connections right here. And if you're interested in not downloading this and exploring it that way, you can also view the survey field app training for lake hosts on our webpage.
Input the paper data into survey 123, or is it just using the app on your phone?
It's just using the app, but you can use the app online as well, so you're not, you know, just on your phone.
Yeah, you can use a laptop. You can access it from any device. It doesn't have to be through your phone app.
We got a tablet, and you can get a used tablet for a couple of $100, and that's what everyone uses. We're not asking people to use their phone, and you can use it as part of your map.
Yeah, you definitely could.
And you don't have to, you know, you doesn't have to be wireless. You can upload it when it gets the Wi-Fi.
Can you repeat that for folks?
It does get hot in the sun. You have to train people not to use.
Yes, so one of our groups, could you remind me which group you're from? Greg Lake. All right, Greg Lake, Antrim Recreation. They have acquired a tablet just for their Lake Coast program to use the Survey 123 app, which they found really successful. I know for my old program, we also had tablets, and that bigger screen makes a huge difference in being able even just to read the lettering for the survey.
You can upload apps of neighboring states, so there can be a lot of information on there. So
yeah, and it was mentioned to our online folks that you can also download the training manual, so that's accessible to lake hosts on the tablet, as well as
we keep maps neighboring states, but with their, like you said, their last place was the Lake Maine, Massachusetts. Thankfully, they stopped off at your lake.
Okay. Right, and we are almost finished up, regardless of whether or not you're using paper or the survey. You do want to submit photo submissions to us of any suspicious specimens. That's a tongue twister for me. And so if you're using the Survey 123 field app, you will take that photo during the survey. At the end of the survey, it will give you the option and it will be automatically connected with the data. If you are using the paper submission form, you want to email us directly with this photo. And try and make it as high quality as you can. If you make the paper a little bit wet since it's laminated, you know, it fans out the delicate leaves of aquatic invasive species a little bit more and helps us ID through our computer.
I would just to add, we check this on weekly basis on the tail ends of the program, but more frequently throughout the week. So when you submit photos, we're able to look at them almost immediately. And if you think that you do have a suspicious specimen or an invasive species, giving us an alert, so an email sends up a red flag in our inbox that we should look at it quicker.
Okay.
That's, that means that like,
Sure. Frankly, any email at newhampshirelakes.org will find its way.
Okay, great. And as a recap, it's biweekly payrolls for paid lake hosts, ongoing identification of suspicious species, and you want to, or we will send you weekly financial reports to group leadership. So your group leader, treasurer, and coordinator. We did it. Any questions?
We have a question online about the Lake Coast trainings. Will a link for the Lake Coast trainings be sent out? And yes, they'll be sent out. They'll be sent in the their final hiring email.
Yeah, their final hiring email, and I think it will automatically include the pre-recorded online.
Yep.
Recordings.
And we'll send out a reminder too to all Lake Coast when they're happening.
And to coordinators.
And to coordinators, yeah.
Just a quick note. And I realized I never got the email that had that link where you fill in like 4 different forms, and the final form is like the I-9.
Yep.
And it wasn't my spam folder.
Oh, okay.
So thank you for that.
So tell you people to look in your spam.
So the comment was to look in your spam folder or have folks look in their spam folder if they haven't seen any emails come from New Hampshire Lakes or iSolved or Savant, because sometimes those end up in the spam folders.
There's no way to dodge it, unfortunately.
Okay, so another question came in. If they're starting on May 22nd, what should they do about training? And I think we mentioned this a little earlier that we do have the trainings online, and in their hiring, when they're in their email that they receive that they've been hired, there is a link to the pre-recorded trainings.
But that's, you said again, was from last year.
It's from last year, but the information is all still relevant. I mean, we haven't changed anything big from that training to this training this year. Right. Aside from, I think the I-9s, because in the very beginning of last year, we had changed the I-9 process.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
So we have some changes to tweaks to the questions for this year for the survey. Is there reasons why I see some new questions in there or some adjustments to the questions from last year?
Yeah, so it's really because of New Hampshire Lakes wanting to be able to better interpret and gather quality data from boaters. So off the top of my head, some of the new questions and we tried to limit them so that lake hosts aren't talking to boaters for 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. Some of the new questions that have been added to the field app as well as written on the paper surveys include: what is your primary activity today out on the water? How is your lake being used? So that could either be general recreation. Are they just going out for a toot around? Are they going out for general fishing? And I think one of them is also maintenance. So we'll see fluctuations. Yes.
No, you don't have to delete it. It will update it for you. So it should prompt you when you logged in that first time that the survey needs to update. So save yourself some time, do not delete.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yep, the out of state, so it's not a new, I think it's, okay, you're testing my knowledge. I'm not sure it's an RSA yet, or it's removed yet. But the out of state voter decal is potentially no longer. And it just because it wasn't making money for the state in the way that they were handling it, so. Okay. So I don't have an affirmative for you. I know that it's in question. I know that it was in one of the bills as a removal, and I don't know the status of that bill off the top of my head, and I apologize. Oh, yes, that's it. Yep.
Square.
Yep. So, yes, that. Yep. So the comment was that at voter registration, there are going to be 2 stickers this year at voter registration. I'm going to bungle this information, but yes, there are 2 stickers. Yes, there's an additional fee this year. And that's not something that Lake Coast need to worry about, but that is something for you guys sure to know if people have questions. Yes.
So the question that often gets the most laughs is where are the bill backs?
Oh,
Yeah, it's like.
Yes, so one of the cool things that I've seen come from that question specifically in Survey 123 is you can create spider maps showing the different travel patterns for boaters from your lake to another lake. And we don't have that nailed down yet. It's a very lofty idea. But it would be really interesting for you all to know, all right, we get a large volume of boaters during the summer. Where are they going to? Where are they coming from? And what species are in those water bodies that I should be surveying for in my water body? What infestations am I at risk for?
That is our biggest. Bring